And hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Jet Fuel podcast. It has been a pretty long time since I've done one of these on GShow Productions. The reason, I'll get into that in just a moment, but this is season 1, episode 17. The Jets playoff run starting tonight at 6 p.m. Central Time against the Colorado Avalanche. Very excited to get into that and much more in this episode today. This edition of the Jet Fuel podcast brought to you by Make Canada Fasteners and Tools, your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. Be sure to check out their store locations in Brandon and Winnipeg today, as well as visiting their website at makecanadafasteners.shop. We're also brought to you by Terrico, serving Manitoba producers for over 80 years in the agricultural industry. Be sure to check out their website at terrico.ca for more information on what they do, and as well as Goaltenders, your goalie's personal video review service. Be sure to contact or check out the website at gordytummelsongoalies.ca for more information on what they do, which is basically a one-on-one video Zoom service, goaltending coach style. Be sure to get in contact with Gordy. He's a great guy. Ex-Winnipeg Jet 1.0 WHA goaltender as well. Played a few games for the franchise back then. But yeah, speaking of goaltenders, the Jets got some great ones this season, winning the Jennings Award for least goals allowed as a team. Connor Hellebuck getting his name on the trophy. I believe Brossoit didn't because he didn't play enough games, but Jets' fantastic goaltending this season. Hellebuck, the front runner, I'd say, to win the Vezina Trophy. The defense in front has been fantastic as well. The structure has been great. A few things that I've disagreed with, but overall, I can't really complain. I'd say this Winnipeg Jets team is a Stanley Cup contender, and you know what? The only thing stopping them could be two teams in their division. Three teams, honestly. The Central is stacked. I'm going to get into the Jets versus Avalanche Game 1 as well as the series in this episode. My thoughts on Rick Bowness, to give my take on, my assessment on a head coach that I think overall has done very well here, and my predictions for how the Winnipeg Jets are going to do in the Stanley Cup playoffs, how they are going to fare, in my honest opinion. It should be a fantastic time no matter what. Playoffs are here. Games have already been played. We've seen the favorites taking control so far, and currently the New York Rangers up on the not the Florida Panthers, the Washington Capitals 3-1 after 2 periods. But you're here for the Jets, and that's what we're going to do. Talk about the Winnipeg Jets. That's what I'm going to do. Riding solo for the return of the Jet Fuel podcast here. GShow Productions on gshow.ca. And thank you to anyone who is tuning into this stream on late notice that we're doing this. Just put it out on Instagram too. A lot going to change next year. This has been our first year. It's been pretty successful, not going to lie, and I can't thank everyone enough who has tuned in. Out of the people that have, the many people on GShow Productions, the live streams, the MMJHL and the MFHL were fantastic this season. In terms of how fun they were, extremely entertaining to do this season, and we can't wait to be back to do more next season. More games as well coming. It's going to be a busy 2024-2025, hopefully. Keeping our fingers crossed that it all works out for us. It didn't quite at times this year. But for the Winnipeg Jets, I mean, going up against the Colorado Avalanche, they thumped the Avs 7-0 in the season series finale, swept the Avs in the season series. But this is the playoffs, and things change, right? People are talking about who are picking the Avs, that, hey, the Avs have Nathan MacKinnon, which is true. He's one of the best playoff performers. You could make the argument the best playoff performer right now in the NHL. Pairing that with Mikko Rantanen as well as Kale McCarr. Valeri Nichushkin in this series. The Avs have a lot of firepower, right? But, I don't think they're as deep as in previous years compared to what the Winnipeg Jets have. We'll see if I pull up the right thing here. Yeah, here are the Jets. So you take a look at the scoring, it's spread out across the board this season. They're getting it from the back end as well, led by Josh Morrissey. Dylan DeMello had a pretty successful season offensively. I'm not a big fan of Neil Pionk. I know I gave him his flowers earlier this season, and he played great, but I feel like came back down to earth a lot actually, as the season went along, and a bit of a liability out there for the Winnipeg Jets. But at the same time, he could be going through it, right? It's just with everything that's happened in his personal life, with him losing his friend to that horrible accident earlier in the season in that hockey game. But the same time, Neil Pionk hasn't been that great as a Winnipeg Jet outside of 1 year. The same excuse of him being injured, I don't think works. But, you look at it, Cole Perfetti's not even in the lineup for this Winnipeg Jets team. That's how, I guess, deep and how much trust Bonus has in the current forward group. He's going with Gustafsson, I believe, for game one tonight. And yeah, I mean, Mark Scheifele's been great all season long. Kyle Connor started to score more as this season came to a close. He had struggles there for a bit. And Nikolai Ehlers has been fantastic. That second line of Monahan, Toffoli, and himself have been really dangerous, creating plenty of chances for the Jets as of late. So when I look at it, I feel like the Jets have the three lines to match the Avalanche. I think that as much as I'd like them to score more, the third line of Lowry paired with a healthy Nino Niederreiter now since he's back playing games, and Mason Appleton, who I think is the third best player on that line. I think that's a spot that the Jets should be looking to improve next season, but he's still done a solid job on the forecheck, playing that role on that line, and he's found a way to get to the net and even score some goals this season. So overall, I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like that line defensively can match up well with the Avs too. Their top line, especially on home ice, and I think that's where home ice matters in this series coming up, right? Colorado is way more dominant at home than they are on the road. The Jets get last change this way, and you allow your top line and your second line to go up against, the Avs second and third lines, as opposed to them going up against a hard candidate and a front runner in many people's eyes in Nathan MacKinnon. So I think that's going to be huge. And another key to winning outside of stopping those top guys for the Avs, for the Jets, is going to be, for the Avs' sakes, can Georgiev or someone in their net step up? And can the Jets take advantage of the weak goaltending that the Avs have compared to what is a really big strength for the Jets compared to the Avs when they match up in the goaltending? Connor Hellebuck, of course, as I said earlier on to open up this show, Vezina front runner, and if he somehow falters, you got Laurent Brossoit in net as great insurance. So, yeah, I'm going to give my prediction coming up later. The last thing I'll say, too, is I think that the Jets got a fantastic defensive structure, and you saw it in those two games against those central opponents in Dallas and in Colorado. Even though Dallas was getting their chances, the Jets were clogging up the house in the front of the net pretty nice, and Brossoit made a lot of good saves, but saves that turned out to be pretty easy because the Jets were playing good defensive hockey. That good structure was stifling. I feel like against a team that has so much speed like Colorado and lives off of that the Jets play with speed too, and if they can use their structure, I think they could very well slow down the Avs. But in terms of, do the Jets have what it takes to win the Stanley Cup, we're going to take a short little transition here, about 5 seconds or so, and I'll be back to tell you my honest answer, my thoughts here on the Jet Fuel Podcast, The Return, Season 1, episode 17 on gshow.ca, sponsored by Make Cannon Fasteners and Tools, Terrico, and Goaltenders. Just taking a sip of water, staying hydrated. The Jets, less than 2 hours away from puck drop at this point. 6 p.m. Central Time. It's currently 4:12 p.m. It's turned into a sunny day, it looks like, in Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is nice. Been pretty sunny all day, honestly. A bit cloudy the last few days. Not gonna lie. A bit chilly, of course, but we're just heading into the prime of spring, I'd say. Almost in May, which is crazy. Hopefully everyone's had a great weekend, and thank you for tuning in if you are. But yeah, do the Jets have what it takes to win a Stanley Cup? And, a lot of people maybe doubted this team heading into this year. I doubted this Winnipeg Jets team heading into last year. And I think that, Rick Bowness coming in and that coaching staff deciding to take away the C from Blake Wheeler was a first real step in terms of this team heading in the right direction. I think that Wheeler, by the way, is an all-time great Winnipeg Jet, the greatest 2.0 Jet of all time, with just the points he put up, the example he set in the community, with what he did for the community here in Winnipeg. And yeah, when he was in his prime, he top 3 playmaker, top 5 at worst in the league. Like, incredible, especially on that run in 17-18. Him, Mark Scheifele, Big Buff, list goes on. That team was stacked. And in this team, they might not have that same type of flair with a guy in Dustin Byfuglien, right? That same type of impact player, but let's be honest, not many people do or have a Dustin Byfuglien. It'd be pretty hard to name it with how skilled he was and how impactful he was with his physicality and his presence. But it started with setting a tone that way, and even though the players didn't take kindly to it, my personal opinion, and I have no takes on this, no inside reports, I feel like Blake Wheeler's influence was heavy in that room last season, and he didn't like Bowness calling out the players. And the players were still, because they had no captain, they were still kind of under the thumb of Blake Wheeler. They get rid of him, buy him out this offseason. He goes to the New York Rangers. I wonder if he'll be back at any point in these playoffs. That would be pretty interesting to see that, Blake Wheeler in the playoffs on the New York Rangers. But naming Adam Lowry as the captain and, going out and getting guys this season was big time work by Kevin Cheveldayoff. And Bowness, calling out his players, I think was big time and showed that, hey, this is a no nonsense culture. You better come ready to play in a playoff game and don't embarrass yourselves. And I think that message should be loud and clear to the players. But yeah, I love what Bowness has done, the culture he's set in that way, how he's not afraid to call out how players are playing. And I love what Kevin Cheveldayoff has done. Already mentioned it, the trade for Velarde and I follow. Velarde being the biggest and most impactful piece in that trade, and it's amazing to see him healthy again. That's huge for the Winnipeg Jets, but also showing that you can have star players decide to sign here too, right? And Connor Hellebuck and Mark Scheifele, when there were so many questions and rumors about if they were going to sign here and go into other teams, right? And I'm sure other teams had a chance. The Jets didn't just want to give him up, and I really got to give credit to Cheveldayoff, and if I haven't, I'll do it again. Even if I have, I'll eat crow. He has been sensational as a general manager this season. The signings he's done, the trades he's made for Monahan and Tyler Toffoli, it's been amazing work, giving up barely anything. I know a first-round pick for Sean Monahan, but he's been paying off big time for this Winnipeg Jets team. The Jets have paid off big time from him. If you take a look at the overall statistics, I mean, Sean Monahan is right there. 34 games, 24 points, 13 goals, 11 assists. He's been exactly what the Jets have needed at the second line center position. And he's been pretty solid in the draw, too, in the faceoff circle for a team that, if you take a look at it, is 47.6% in the face-off draw this season. But in terms of if the Jets have what it takes to win a Stanley Cup, I think they do have it. And just looking at basic stats, this team, special teams could be the Achilles heel for this team, but if they can find a way to get it together, and if they can play disciplined hockey and stick to their structure, I believe this team can go on a huge run. They limited shots really well this season. Offensively, there was a lack of offense compared to the other top end teams. Like, you look at it, the Dallas Stars, the Colorado Avalanche, who of course the Jets are matching up against them, but the Jets 198 goals against and not allowing as many shots as in the past. They play a more defensive style, so I think that's where the lack of offense is coming from. But then again, you look at them, if their game breakers can be on their top of their game, like Mark Scheifele, if Kyle Connor can continue to find offense, if Nikolai Ehlers, who has created a lot of chances in the playoffs, people call him a ghost, but if he can have a huge playoff run, man, that team is so much deeper than they've been in the past. That line of Lowry, Niederreiter, and Appleton have been fantastic all season long at creating chances, and Adam Lowry is put up in the playoffs. Niederreiter is a player that has missed time, and I feel like is going to be making a huge impact too. You can see goals from him, and let's not forget, this third line was able to carry offense earlier on in the season, so the Jets have a better second line than when they did starting out this season. They improved at the deadline tremendously in terms of their depth up in the wings. They decided to go that route instead of bringing in a guy in Rutger McGroarty, but that's a discussion for another day. I still think the Jets, kind of knew that and planned, and that's a big reason why Toffoli comes in to the question, into the equation, and he's been settling in and getting better and better, and it allows for you to just improve that top six immensely, which the Jets have. That third line, I think with the history they have scoring in the playoffs, is a big time. And David Gustafsson, I think that Cole Perfetti honestly has earned some looks in the playoffs with how he's played. I'll get into him a bit more in just a little bit here in terms of my thoughts on him and the whole coaching staff and how they've handled him, in my honest opinion. But yeah, that fourth line this season, no matter who you put there, sucks Morgan Barron is out because he's produced in such a small role this year in terms of it being sheltered. So no matter what, though, if you have David Gustafsson and he's a solid defensive presence who looked great on that third line. So I love how the Jets match up against the four lines that the Colorado Avalanche have. And you look at it, it's not like their second line is producing as much as they have in the past. Let's take a look at the Colorado Avalanche stats. I'll pull them up on my computer here. And Mikko Rantanen is solid. I mean, over 100 points. But outside of him, I mean, Casey Middlestad, 57 points. A good acquisition. Jonathan Drouin is going to be missing some time. Valerie Nichushkin is good too. But outside of that, I mean, Ross Colton, 40 points. I just take a look at the Jets. I think when you got home ice advantage the way they do, that's big time because you got the last change. It's not like the Lowry line is going to be facing off against those guys, and I feel like the Lowry line could shut down a lot of lines in this conference, but you're going to be playing against most likely the Jets' first and second line, who can create so much offense, and a second line that's only gelling more and more. And then you're not even factoring in the Jets' second best point getter in terms of Josh Morrissey, who was outstanding again this season. And you just take a look at the structure and the way the Jets play. I feel like drawing Colorado was huge because you don't have to go up against a team that's as deep and that has a lot of offensive firepower in the Dallas Stars. You go up against a team that, sure, they have game breakers, but nowhere near as much, I don't think, depth and firepower throughout the lineup. And guys have been banged up on that Colorado team. It's going to be a physical series. I do like some of the size that the Jets have, especially in the bottom of the lineup, and maybe that's the idea of why Perfetti is not in. As much as I don't agree with it, it's the stylistic thing. The Jets, the two things they need to worry about is, of course, the Avs top line and Nathan MacKinnon, but as well as worrying about that power play that ranks pretty high up in the league, top 10. And, that has so many game breakers on it. The Jets need to find a way to stay disciplined in that way, in that regard, in the series. But their best PKer is going to be Connor Hellebuyck, and I feel like he's going to be a big difference in this series, no matter if the Jets get outshot or not. I feel like the Jets structure, they're going to do a good job of keeping the Avalanche to the outside and also helping in front, playing as one. That's something that's been so evident in the bonus era so far here, is the Jets play so well as one unit. But I think that Hellebuyck is going to be on the top of his game. I don't believe he's going to falter here. And the big thing is the whiteout, right? People are saying, oh, we should get rid of the whiteout because the Jets aren't very good. I think the stat is like 3-11 in whiteout games, which is kind of crazy. But I think that in front of a home crowd in these first two games, them knowing how important it is to get off to a quick start, heading back to Colorado, where they play so well at home, I feel like Hellebuyck is going to come ready to play. This team is going to be locked in. They don't want the same repeat of last year. And yeah, I think that with how elite this team has been this season, having the best goaltending in the league, and their players, like top guys, playing at their pretty high level, near the top of their level, in a Scheifele and a Nikolai Ehlers, and that second line together, Monahan being the stud he is, Kyle Connor getting going again with a few goals to end off the season. I love the Jets' chances, and I think that, they battled a bit of adversity going on that 6-game losing streak. A lot of people were writing them off, and then they go on a 8-game run where they win 8 games. They beat top-end teams and really make a statement with a 7-0 win over the Colorado Avalanche. They've been elite defensively this season. They got the best goaltender in the league. I'll say it again and keep saying it. And I feel like a lot of players feel like they have something to prove. Nikolai Ehlers saying that this team has been motivated ever since being called frauds. And I think that with how Nikolai Ehlers has been perceived, that's a player that I think is going to have a huge playoffs. I'm wearing his jersey today. Really excited. This game coming up in almost an hour and a half, puck drop at the Canada Life Center. I'm going to be back to give you my honest thoughts on the man himself, Rick Bowness, here on the Jet Fuel podcast on gshow.ca, brought to you by Terraco, make hand fasteners and tools and goaltenders. Stick around. Welcome back to the Jet Fuel podcast, everybody. Hope you're enjoying this so far. If you are, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future uploads of this here on gshow.ca, on GShow Productions. GShow Productions on YouTube. That is going to be planning to do a few more episodes of this, a full revamp of this show coming next year. I'm planning to make it look a bit more special. than it does already. Been playing around with Canva and hoping to design some really cool stuff to live up to the hype of what we were, planning to present with this podcast. It's been fun just talking, but I want to add some flair to it, some graphics. Connor Habchuk has done an excellent job this season. You could argue he's the best content creator for the Jets in the city right now. Shout out to him. I don't know if he's watching this or not, or will ever see this clip, but yeah, I think that it's been so much debate this season, and so many things coming out in terms of biases and people's strong opinions on certain players and certain individuals, and I have my own stances as well. And honestly, my stance heading into this season was that the Winnipeg Jets would finish third place. It was a highly upgraded team, and I always stood by the fact that this team, it was the depth that was going to be big time for this team. I said the depth is a lot better, and I get that the goals weren't high like people were expecting it, but this team has done it by committee, right? And if we show it again, I mean, Mark Scheifele is there with the most points. No player on this team is over point per game. Connor is close. Scheifele is close at that, right? But you look at it, they got the scoring from the defensemen, from the back end, and they got, so many players with over 10 goals this season, and they play such a defensive style, and that's a credit to Rick Bonus's system. And I think that what I like about it, and these are my thoughts on Rick Bonus, by the way. Overall, I think he's a good coach. He came in, and like I said it earlier, he built the culture. He instilled the workman-like attitude that fixed a team, a city like the Winnipeg Jets so well. He brought down the hammer. He has balls, like huge balls from Rick Bonus to come in and strip Blake Wheeler of the sea, kind of popping the balloon of his ego, right? Kind of humbling him big time. And you could see it sometimes in Wheeler's body language. I think Blake Wheeler worked hard. That's the type of player he was every game, but you could definitely see there could have been some tension by the way he talked in the media and how he responded to Rick Bonus calling out the team, how he didn't like it and it rubbed him the wrong way and all that stuff. But he's come in, he's built the culture, he's brought in a structure that works. They've played as one, they've cut down the shots against per game. I remember in the era when we had Paul Maurice as the coach, his team was giving up 35 shots per game, it seemed like, or the average per game was over 30 shots, and that's been cut down last year and then even more so this year. So year two of the structure, the guys are more used to it, and it's been tremendous to see. It's been awesome to see. You look at the Jets, although they haven't improved in terms of every analytical stat, they're pretty solid, right? In terms of the expected goals for category, they're way above their goals against compared to their goals for. It's 51.41% there overall, and they rank 12th. Just doing some silent counting there if you can hear it, but ranking 12th in that stat category, and you see it in terms of if you look at naturalstattrick.com, I believe it's .com, you'll find that this team, even though they've allowed maybe a lot of high danger scoring chances, they haven't allowed a lot of high danger scoring shots, and that's a credit to them not giving up, I feel like, on plays and limiting chances in the house area when it gets there inside the high danger areas. And even when they do let up chances, Connor Hellebuck and Lauren Brossois have been the guys that have been big time for this team. But you know, this team is playing more structured hockey. The back pressure is so great. The defensemen have been playing above expectation in a lot of ways. And a guy like Brendan Dillon, who I feel like some people wrote off early on in the season, I didn't write Brendan Dillon off. I felt like he was going to get better as the season went on, even though I criticized his play. Dylan Sandberg has been a guy who I think has shown he can play in the top four. Dylan DeMello is this team's best defensive defenseman, and I think that those guys have been elevated in this system. And Josh Morrissey, ever since he's been paired with Rick Bowness as the head coach, has taken his game to another level. We're seeing a Mark Scheifele that gives more of a crap, and I think that him signing here was terrific and does say a lot about where this Winnipeg Jets franchise could be heading. And I feel like Bonus has gotten, more consistency and more buy-in from this entire group, because it started off with him coming in, ripping the C off of Blake Wheeler's chest, and them as an organization finally deciding to buy him out. I think that Bonus, there's two things I haven't been happy with, three things, I guess. The power play, but that's not solely his issue. It's Brett Lauer's, and I think that's more of an organizational thing, honestly, than anything. That he's still the power play coach. They found some stuff that works, but this team is outside of the top 20. It's ridiculous in special teams in both areas. The power play has been stagnant. The support has been lacking on the zone entries on the one side, and they forced to rim it around a lot of times. And yeah, it just doesn't work because it's so predictable. You know exactly where the puck is going. It looked a lot better with the prospects came up to play in Lambert and Chiprikov, but yeah, the power play, I'd like to see more within the coaching staff to push this guy to do his job right while he's here. But honestly, that's out of their control. What is in his control, though, is playing Neil Pionk as much as he does in the big situations. And a problem that I don't think is huge right now, but a problem where I think that it'll be interesting to see is how does that top line of Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor respond coming up against if they do have to play the Nathan MacKinnon line, right? If this Jets team advances, how are they going to look against the top line of the Dallas Stars? And if they aren't lined up against the top line, how are they going to look against the lines like the second, third line that are really good for this Dallas team, right? How are they going to look against the Vegas Golden Knights top end guys if it were to be Vegas that moves through? Because these guys are not good in their own end at all. And against the Colorado Avalanche, they weren't the Jets' best line. Against the Dallas Stars, I don't think they were the Jets' best lines. The Jets' best line has been the second line, and the third line, I feel like, has been more trustworthy at times than the first line. But that being said, if playing those guys together and they want to play together and all that is going to lead to this team having a better second line and third line, I'm all for it. I think that Nikolai Ehlers with those guys, it just seems to fit with him and Sean Monahan and Tyler Toffoli. So if this team is succeeding in winning hockey games like they were, I think it did start with them doing a line switch, and I think that really put some guys on notice, like, hey, I don't want to lose my spot in the lineup again. So Kyle Connor started scoring again with Cole Perfetti, and I think that was great to get those guys going, to give Cole Perfetti confidence and to give Connor a guy that he can work with, right? That has worked before and find some chemistry, because Kyle Connor was snake bitten and has started to find the net again. But yeah, I'm okay with it if that's the case up front. Honestly, it's a minor issue at this point for me with how Bonus keeps that top line together. What it really concerns me is his faith in Neil Pionk and the way that Neil Pionk is played in certain situations. He's been responsible for a lot of goals against, a huge culprit in that, maybe not directly responsible for a lot, but pretty responsible for, I do think so, actually, for quite a bit of the goals that the Jets seem to let in. It seems like he's always on the ice, and it's either he whiffs on the puck or turns it over. He's the one that starts it, that kind of causes it, and sometimes he's being pressured and just can't make a decision quick enough, or I guess panics. And to continue to play him if he is going through injury or something, no matter what it is, I just don't understand. Like in the game, the 3-on-3 against Edmonton, in that game, the Jets lost an OT within that losing streak at home, or the fact that he still continues to get the amount of minutes he does. It's just insane to me. I think that's something that could cost the Jets if they do get past the first round, and honestly, maybe something in this round, the amount of time he plays. He's been a liability, and when Logan Stanley is playing better than you, which by the way, he's been playing great, Logan Stanley. I'll eat crow on that. He's showing his worth in the NHL right now. And, at the end of the day, as much as I've crapped on him, happy for him. But you got to be better than Logan Stanley if you're making $6 million, which Neil Pionk is in that range. And yeah, overall, I think that in the end, I can't complain too much. Like I said, first line is what it is. If it makes the rest of the lineup better, I like it. And it's been a second line that's been working great, a third line that's worked so well together, fourth line, like I said, solid no matter who you put there. And the decor, Josh Morrissey has played above expectation, not even above expectation. This decor, I'd say, has played above expectation. It's been led by Josh Morrissey, and the question marks for me are going to be Pionk. And can Logan Stanley continue his strong play into the playoffs and continue to use his size? I think that could be huge on the bottom pairing for the Winnipeg Jets and that shelter role he's been playing on. But my biggest question mark is Neil Pionk at this point. And I think overall the biggest question mark for this team is the special teams. And that's going to be the biggest thing, I think, standing in the Jets' way potentially from making a run, is if they get into into penalty trouble, if they get opportunities on the power play to answer back. Will they? I'm not so sure. But yeah, we've seen this team elevate before. I think Gabe Vilardi being back is huge, and he scored most of his goals in tight anyways. So get him the puck, find ways to create space for that, and I think good things could happen on the power play. More movement, please. More support as well would be nice. Those are just a few things. They gotta coach it. I just gotta sit here and spectate it and bitch about it if it's not well, and praise it if it is well, because I do hope it goes well for the Jets on special teams. I think the saving grace for the Jets is going to be their goaltending, and they got the best tandem in the league, like I already talked about, and Helly wants a ring bad. And yeah, if he falters, they have Brossois, but I don't think Helly will falter. I'm not sure if he pays attention to the news or social media. It's more so on social media. But Henrik Lundqvist, Marty Brodeur, and others don't have him in the top 5 current goalies right now. And maybe it's jealousy. Maybe they're just not watching the games. Maybe they don't want to believe the stats. But I'm disappointed in King Henrik, especially. Brodeur, I mean, is what it is. But Henrik Lundqvist, especially. And yeah, I think that Helly is going to prove a lot of haters wrong. So will he be enough to lead the Jets to the playoffs, to carry them as a main piece? We'll talk about that coming up. But overall, my thoughts on Rigobonis, the culture he's built, the structure, him getting guys to buy in has been great this year. Yeah, I don't agree with all his line decisions, but it is what it is. And yeah, I mean, maybe they feel the pressure they got to play Neil Pionk and get the most out of that $6 million that they're spending. But it does hurt as a Jets fan seeing it sometimes, and not having the faith he has in Perfetti. That's a story for a whole other day. But rarely he played over 15 minutes under Bonus's watch, from what I've seen. and not even any time in OT. And kind of funny, he had a point streak with Scott Arniel. But full video of Cole Perfetti coming this off season, most likely. So stay tuned for that. But what we'll be talking about next, what I'll be talking about next to finish things off here on the Jet Fuel podcast, will be can the Winnipeg Jets go on a Stanley Cup run? Going up against the opponents. I do believe that this team can go on a Stanley Cup run, but will they go on a Stanley Cup run? My honest predictions, my thoughts, Jets Nation, coming up here on the Jet Fuel Podcast, Season 1, Episode 17. Stick with me. And welcome back to the Jet Fuel Podcast, as you saw there, and been seeing all episode long, brought to you by Make Canada Fasteners and Tools, Terrico, and Goaltenders. Talked about a lot of things. It's great to be back, and yeah, we're 41 minutes in. It's 4:42, almost an hour away from puck drop, just over an hour and 15 minutes, and yeah, this Winnipeg Jets team this season, as you can see right here, based off of the wins, tied with the Carolina Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, and the Dallas Stars for the most wins in the league. Dallas had 3 more points than Winnipeg based off of 3 more OT losses. The Jets with 3 more wins, or 3 more losses in regulation than Dallas, and you can see there the power play differential quite evident when you look at the stats. Dallas with advantage in all of those. Colorado as well with a huge advantage on the power play compared to the Jets, but penalty kill wise, not the strongest compared to teams like, well, the Dallas Stars at that on this list. Vegas not listed there, but the acquisitions that they made at the trade deadline could be scary if this team gels. I honestly do think that the Dallas Stars are going to beat the Vegas Golden Knights. These teams didn't play in a while, and yeah, Vegas has had Dallas's number dating back to last season in the conference finals, but I think what Dallas did going out and getting Chris Tanev was big time, and I like them heading into this year. They were my preseason pick to win the Cup. I'm not sure if I've said that before on this show, but yeah, they were my preseason pick to win the Cup. Adding in Logan Stankoven, he's been a game breaker. They already had established guys in, well, the top line, and Jason Robertson, the Ageless Wonder, and Joel Pavelski, and Rupe Hintz, who they just recently signed to a long-term deal. Jamie Benn, Wyatt Johnston, and Stankoven on that third line has been dynamite, and the second line is pretty darn good too. Mason Marchment, uh, Matt Duchene, Dadonov's listed there, but not even naming Tyler Seguin. Like, they're loaded, they're stacked on the back end too, with that top pairing of Heiskanen and Harley. Lindell solid. You got Chris Tanev there. Yeah, this is just a really solid Dallas Stars team that, if Ottinger can continue to play well, they're going to be a really tough out. And that's why I didn't want the Jets to play them this season, because they're so damn deep and so damn loaded from top to bottom. Where I look at a team in the Colorado Avalanche, I'll just pull up their lines to take a true look. Like, I like their lineup a lot when you take a look at Valery Nichushkin and Arteri Lehkonen moving up, Mikko Rantanen to that top line. But Zach Parise, I mean, yeah, he's going to be hopefully elevated by the play of Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen for Colorado Avalanche fans' sake. But Miles Wood, Ross Colton, Joel Kiravanta, Andrew Cogliano, Yakov Trenin, and Brandon Duhaime. I mean, it's an okay bottom six, but in my opinion, I like Nino Niederreiter better than Miles Wood. Adam Lowry has been almost Selke level this season. You could say Selke level in terms of him getting some consideration, at least for some votes in the award. And Mason Appleton, I think he's the weak link on that line, but he still showed some good traits in his forechecking and his finishing ability. I mean, we'll go back again to the stats here. But Mason Appleton was 8th on this team. He had more points than Adam Lowry, even though he played one more game than him. Nino Niederreiter, I'd say, is the best player on that line, and Adam Lowry is clearly, I think, better than Mason Appleton. I'm just saying the guy can put up points. So I think, again, home ice, even if those guys don't match up with them, with the home ice the Jets have, the last change is huge, and we've seen this Adam Lowry line do pretty good at limiting top lines in the past. I think that when they played against Colorado, even though if they weren't out against them, the Jets' structure was pretty good too. I think we're going to see, I think if the Jets want to have the best success, like I said earlier on, it's going to be shutting down that top line and getting pucks on net, of course. Finding any way to get pucks on net on Georgiev and testing him again, right? Does he turn it on? I think that the Jets have a great chance to light him up. But if the Jets can get on their forecheck, establish the cycle game, and work high to low, get the D involved, I think they'll have great success in this series. I think shutting down that top line, you got to take away the middle of the ice like they did in the season series finale, and play really aggressive at your own blue line upon them trying to enter in. And honestly, starting further than that, don't let McKinnon build up speed, but you got to find a way to adjust throughout the series because great players find a way to adjust as well. I think that's where coaching is. It's going to come down to that too. Potentially in this series, if it goes longer, that's when coaching comes into it more, right? But special teams wise, this team, honestly, on the power play, they got a lot of skill there. But they've been so stagnant this season. I'm really interested to see what Brett Lauer cooks up. I really am interested to see what this team does on the penalty kill against this Colorado Avalanche team. You want to keep them to the outside, but does this team find a way to break this Winnipeg Jets team in a way of opening up passing lanes? I think the Jets need to find a way to be aggressive, but you can't be too aggressive to the point where you're committing too much and giving up those passing lanes, which could very well happen. But yeah, it's easier to say, it's easier said than done, but this team needs to find a way to stay disciplined in this series to heighten their chances. But honestly, at the end of the day, I'm honestly not too concerned about the penalty kill if Connor Hellebuyck comes to play, and I'm very confident he comes to play in this series. I think this is going to be the biggest X factor for the Jets, because if he can find a way to at least disrupt McKinnon in some way, getting your stick on him and stuff like that, and even if he gets a clean shot, if you can stifle him in net, if you're a guy in Connor Hellebuyck, I think that's huge. He's going to be shooting a lot in this series, so the defense in front of Winnipeg are going to have to come to play and clear it away. I think they do. I think the defensive structure is going to be on point for this Winnipeg Jets team. I think they're more bought in this year compared to last year, and I think that the effort was piss poor from the players. At the end of the day, I don't think it's going to be like that a second time around, and that's what you need. You need effort and heart to beat a team with as many game breakers as Colorado does have. I think the Jets have that. I think the Jets have some game breakers of their own that are going to prove themselves. I think Mark Scheifele and that top line actually have a chance to have a fantastic series offensively, but I think the line that is going to make a huge difference and where a player is going to really set his mark in this series in the playoffs and, really establish himself as a playoff player is Nikolai Ehlers. I think he's going to be the creator behind a lot of things in this playoffs for the Winnipeg Jets. Expect for that third line to play a shutdown role against the first line, limiting the Avs top line pretty well in this series. And yeah, I think that it's so important that the Jets get home ice. I think that they're going to use it to their advantage and really stomp the they can't win in the whiteout era notion. And I think they haven't been as good in the past as many people may think when they made the playoffs in the past few years. This team is as good, maybe not as good, but maybe a touch below it, but on paper even better defensively by the stats than the 2017-18 team. That's what this team's comparable to. The vibes seem kind of similar to that, to be honest with you, this year compared to that year, and I expect for this Winnipeg Jets team to ride off those vibes into the second round. But does this Winnipeg Jets team win against the Dallas Stars? They beat them in the last game of the season with Laurent Brossoit in net. I'm going to be honest, Jets fans. I predicted the Jets to lose in my Stanley Cup bracket. I got the Dallas Stars making it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. And the reason is I think they're even deeper than the Jets. As great as the Jets' third line is with the energy they create. And they've put up the goals this season, no doubt about it. When you talk about guys like Adam Lowry and, Mason Appleton, Nino Niederreiter, all in the top 10 of this team's scoring. The third line, you look at it, Jamie Benn, Logan Stankoven, and Wyatt Johnston are in it. And it's just, Dallas has an embarrassment of riches. Winnipeg, their structure is so good defensively. They got the best goaltender in the league. But in my opinion, I think Jake Ottinger is going to get hot, and he can be a huge X factor in the playoffs, as we saw against the Calgary Flames. Even though they lost that series, he put up historic numbers a few years ago. And that team was not nearly as good as it is now, where they won the Western Conference. I do think there's a shot that this Winnipeg Jets team beats the Dallas Stars, however, and it comes down to Connor Hellebuyck playing the best hockey of his life. But more than that, the Jets' top players continuing to play really great hockey. They need more than just their third line to come through. They need their top two lines to actually produce. And I feel like with Dallas having the last change, I just feel like objectively Dallas's lineup is better than the Winnipeg Jets. Their top end guys of Robertson and Roope Hintz. Roope Hintz is a much better defensive forward than, even though he's been so good this season both ways because of his effort, then Mark Scheifele. Like, he's elite defensively, and he can put up offense, too. I just feel like with the guy in Jason Robertson, he can be good both ways, too. And he hasn't even, if that guy can get going offensively, he is one of the best offensive talents in the league. Rangers just made it 4-1 with under 4 minutes left, by the way. They're on their way to going up 1-0 in the series. But defensively, they got a really solid core. I'd say on paper is better than Winnipeg's. Thomas Harley has been a really great offensive contributor and just complement to Miro Heiskanen. And yeah, this is a team that's on the forecheck constantly. They match up really great against Winnipeg and have the depth to match. But in terms of Winnipeg winning the series, like I said, it's going to come down to Connor Hellebuyck, and if those top guys can continue to produce, Dallas is just really good in their own end as well, and the power play is fantastic for that team. They got so many weapons on it that, yeah, I think that Winnipeg not having home ice hurts them too in that series. And I think that Winnipeg could take them to 6 or 7 games, but I think just based off how Dallas played them, Winnipeg was going to get one. I think they're that good of a team, but yeah, I think Dallas will be a bit too much for the Winnipeg Jets and will come through with the victory. And like I said, I got them going to the Cup. I got Carolina winning the Cup. Didn't play amazing yesterday, but did enough to get the job done, capitalize on their chances when they needed to. Kuznetsov, he's back with the eagle, the bird flying, all that. But yeah, I mean, the Jets, if they get past Dallas, I think they could very well go to the Cup. But who knows? Maybe neither team from the Central goes. Someone brought this up at a draft that I was at, and it's a great point. Like, Edmonton is insanely skilled, and they've been the best team since I think it was the All-Star break. And this is a team with two of the highest scoring offensive talents, the two highest scoring forwards in NHL history in the playoffs in terms of points per game, who are much deeper now in the Edmonton Oilers. It's the question mark about Stuart Skinner, right? If they can cruise by the LA Kings, which is always a tough matchup for them, even though they get by it, it goes to about 6 or 7 games. They can get past them in 5 or 6 games, and who knows, maybe the Vancouver Canucks get upset against the Nashville Predators, but neither of those teams are, I feel like, as physical. I could be wrong on this, but I don't feel like they're as physical as the teams in the Central Division, and I feel like the Central Division teams are much closer together. Winnipeg, I think the series against the Colorado Avalanche, I think that, did I call the series what it's going to go? I think that Winnipeg is going to take it in 6 games. That's my prediction. I think that Dallas is going to beat Winnipeg in 6 games coming up in the second round. That's my call. But yeah, I mean, then you go on, you face Vancouver, the Predators, and I feel like that series won't be as physical. I feel like they could be really fast, especially that second round with, if especially if it was Vancouver and the Oilers with McDavid, the speed they have, the speed Vancouver has. But yeah, it could be a Pacific team that banks off of, that team coming out of the Central side not having as much rest. And yeah, in terms of the Cup, I think that it's just Carolina is the most complete team in hockey at this point. Kuznetsov, like that fourth line, they were using it as their third line yesterday, and I think that is so impressive how insanely deep they are. Underrated depth, I think, because Natchez and Teravainen maybe not the same superstar status, but going out and adding as other players in teams' top sixes, but. And they got Kotkaniemi too as their second line center, but adding Jake Gensel is just the piece that they've been looking for, the piece they've needed, a piece that has stayed healthy, and a piece that I picked pretty high in a 16-team playoff fantasy pool with my first pick. But yeah, I think that's my team, Carolina. Every metric you look analytically and by the basic stats, like they are so elite defensively. Maybe it wasn't shown yesterday, but Freddie Anderson showed he can make the big saves when he needs to. They got a pretty solid goaltending tandem, but I feel like Freddie Anderson's going to be the guy there. And yeah, they're just so deep. That decor is so good too, and even deeper after they added Orlov in the offseason. So I think that Carolina could take advantage. I think the East is going to be tough, but the West is even tougher. And that's why I got an East team winning this season, just because the road could be maybe a bit easier than the West. Like the Central side, you got 3 teams, I believe, with over 100 points. That one of them is going to be out in round 1. But as for the Jets, I think they got what it takes to neutralize Colorado's attack with their defensive structure and goaltending. I think they got enough up front to get by them. I think that Dallas may be a better version of Winnipeg. I hope I'm wrong on that, and if I am wrong on that, Winnipeg goes to the conference finals, and I do believe, rest or no rest, that Winnipeg has as good of a chance as anybody to beat a team like the Edmonton Oilers or the Vancouver Canucks, Nashville Predators, even if it's the LA Kings, because the Jets have the best goaltender in the world. I'll iterate it again. They got amazing defensive structure, led by, with that core, an amazing defenseman in Josh Morrissey that can contribute offensively and defensively. Don't remember that guy having a bad game in a very long time. But you got guys like Dylan DeMello, who is such a steady defensive presence for this team, who's been the best defensive defenseman for my money on the Jets roster since he's been acquired by the team. Dylan Samberg has just continued to grow in his game. He's been a stud. And if Logan Stanley can continue to improve on his, not even improve on his play, but keep up his play in the role he's playing, I think that only benefits the Jets. I think that guys also are going to have something to prove in these playoffs. And if they can get going in terms of guys like Mark Scheifele and that top line, the way it is, can produce, Nikolai Ehlers, like I am predicting him to have a huge playoffs, can have a huge playoffs for this team. That's going to impact that second line so greatly, and already that second line has been so fantastic together. Monahan, the guy that does the dirty work on the line, Toffoli, who's been so good as I think he's going to be so good as a piece where he's going to be a weapon on that line, where he's going to bang in some goals going to the net and feed him in the slot. That third line can create so much energy for this team, and I don't really think it matters who they put in their fourth line because they got so much in their arsenal. Like, this team is able to get past Dallas. They got the depth, they got the structure and the goaltending to do dangerous things, and I do think that they're Stanley Cup contenders. Just that I think they're going to run into the best team in the West in the second round. I believe enough in the Jets for them to make it by the first round, and I'll say it again, I can see them beating the Dallas Stars, but also I don't want to jinx it, and Dallas was my preseason pick, and I just think they're still so deep, and they don't really have many holes in their game, where Winnipeg, you could argue there are holes in their game, but can they rise above it and prove people wrong? I don't think they're frauds at all. I just think they're in really tough with the road that they're having to take. If they were in the Pacific Division, I got the Jets going to the conference finals all day long. But being a realist, I just feel like Dallas is going to be the team. I would rather face off against the Vegas Golden Knights. I know that is crazy to say, and if they get going, maybe they're dangerous. But again, the Jets have such a clear X factor no matter what. I don't think people understand last season that this Jets team, yeah, they went up against a Vegas team that virtually hasn't changed, and they've gotten even better now. But, like, the Jets, come on. They did not have the same effort level. They're riding in hot. They were a wild card team. They're second in the division. I have them third, even though I didn't expect for them to place better than Colorado or Dallas. Place better than Colorado, not Dallas. And I think that Vegas, there were times where they stumbled this season. The consistency wasn't there from them down the line, where it was for the Stars. So that's my take on it. I'm hoping the Jets win the Stanley Cup. Don't get me wrong. It's just I got Dallas as just being as real as I can with you, like I've promised to do on this show as the Jets fan / realist here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. But that's going to do it, everybody. It's 5:04. We're under an hour away from puck drop. Unbelievable time. If you're going to the street party, have some fun. If you went to the street party and watched this, comment how it was. Would like to hear your thoughts. I will not be attending this year. I'll be watching all the games from my home if I get a chance to go to a game. I'm not going to pass it up, but went to the Whiteout, the street party last year. It was fun, but it's not worth the money, in my opinion. And tickets, I feel like, are kind of hard to get with only 5,000 people. That's the limit, right? And it's money I just don't have right now to spend. But thank you for tuning in if you did. It's been awesome seeing this. Thank you for everyone that's tuned in. Sorry, guys, I haven't been looking at the comment section But yeah, I guess I'll answer some comments to end off this episode, actually. How concerned am I? The first one from Toby Bergman. How concerned am I about Scheif Connor Velarde line on the defensive end? Yeah, I mean, I think it could be concerning. The sample size has shown us this season that those guys get hemmed in. And I think from watching the eye test, like even in that game against the Dallas Stars, they get the empty net goal, but that team wasn't generating like eye popping, outstanding chances that a first line should be. Love underscore edit Zed. Yes, I will give you a shout out. Shout out to him or her or whoever it is. But yeah, I think that who do I think is going to win the cup? Uh, did actually say it. I do think it's going to be the Carolina Hurricanes, in all honesty. I think that they got the exact piece that they needed to, that they haven't had in previous years. Um, I think that yeah, I think that they haven't gotten that piece that they have in the previous years that they have in Yensel now, and having Kuznetsov, it's insane in terms of the depth. No problem. It's a great fan to be a team of. I hope they get past, and I think a big thing too when you look at it, teams like Colorado and Washington, like these were teams that they lost a lot of games and went through experience of losing before getting over the hump, and you know, even teams that have added some key pieces, which Carolina I don't think did to the extent that they did this year, adding Kuznetsov and of course Gensel. So I think that's big time, and pulling for them because I also got about 5 of them in one pool and 7 of them in one fantasy pool. So kind of riding or dying by them. But how do you have a soft spot? Of course, Simon Ho for the Winnipeg Jets. Yeah, I guess they are the newest Canadian team in a sense since they were the last team before Arizona, who's relocating to Utah, which is pretty crazy. That now we're coming full circle. Arizona comes from a team in Winnipeg who loses their team, and now Arizona's losing their team. And my least favorite team. It's an interesting question. I'm not really sure. I'd have to think about that one. But yeah, like I said, I think that the Jets, their top line, to answer Toby's question, and then I'm gonna peace out. We'll do this again probably next week, another Jet Fuel podcast. But I do think that the first line could be an issue for the Jets, especially if they start to get hemmed in from it and they're not getting that same offense from the other lines. But I think the Jets, like I've already said, have the lines, the offense to, you know, get it done, even if that first line is faltering, because that hasn't been the best line, even in some of the Jets' most impressive wins this season. Down the line, when you look at it in Carolina and in or in Colorado and in Dallas, but yeah, I think that Rick Bonus, the game plan, I think that for one reason or the other, he has this Jets team playing as a complete unit. And I think that when you look at the decor, it really is nothing spectacular. It's got significant pieces in Morrissey. And you're looking at guys like a Sandberg who've really stepped up this season. I'm a huge DeMello fan as well. This is responding to Simon Ho's comment. But you look at guys like Neil Pionk, who, you know, at times could be a detriment to this team, and we've seen it. They don't have, you know, as many issues, I think, defensively because of how well the structure is that Rick Bonus has with them playing as a complete team on the back pressure. Their forwards are doing a lot better in their own end. Now there's guys that, of course, struggle like Kyle Connor in his own end, and I think that's just a player issue, especially himself and Mark Scheifele, who have been not very good in their own end. But the players coming back on the back check, playing better as a whole, as a unit, I think that's been a huge step in why the Jets have been way better this season. And yeah, I think that they could go on a huge run. They have the pieces to, even though I'm predicting them to lose in the second round. Who am I to say? I've been wrong many times, and I could honestly see this team making their way to a conference final potentially, and potentially a Stanley Cup. But gotta get past Dallas and Vegas. Historically, it's been a team that Winnipeg can't, match up as well against. But I think they could beat them. I think they can beat them for sure. But that's going to do it for this edition of the Jet Fuel Podcast. Thank you to everyone that tuned in. If you enjoyed this, leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future episodes. We're going to keep this rolling into next week. Episode 18 will return probably midweek, Wednesday, depending on... we'll shoot for Wednesday coming up next week, or this week coming up. So stay tuned on gshow.ca, on GShow Productions. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thank you to Mick Cannon Fasteners and Tools Terraco and Goaltenders for sponsoring this edition of the Jet Fuel Podcast. Sure to check out their details, search them up, and you'll be able to find them. We also showed their websites throughout this episode. Jets Nation, it's 5:12. We're less than 50 minutes away from puck drop for Game 1 at the Canada Life Center of the Jets 2024 Stanley Cup playoffs. Hopefully they go on a run. Hoping for it. I'm calling the Jets in 6 games to beat Colorado. Let me know your prediction. And yeah, we will see you all coming up soon in the next few days here on GShow Productions. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care, and we'll let Nico Feniak's outro take us away. See you later, everyone. Enjoy the game, Jets Nation.